There is a resolution or a resolve that happens if you take Tishri and eliminate that as the beginning of the new year and make it Nisan. That Nisan is where the Jewish New Year should be. And this is also something I saw being discussed later in the year. I was talking with people about it in emails, saying there is a resolve that was never able to be achieved before. And it is this. First, I want to tell you this. Nobody knows where the Jubilee is, guys. There's arguments, debates, and you go on and on and on, and you're just in supposition and speculating, and I'm not going to go there. All people do, and this is where it kind of, I think, started, is they looked at the Balfour Declaration of 1917 and saw that the Six-Day War in 1967 was 50 years apart. Speculation only, that this must be both Jubilees. So, I mean, nobody can prove it, guys. Is it or is it not? Okay. The problem, again, if you believed that Tishri was opening up the year, the Jewish New Year, what you had is you had Tishri, 1917 to 1918. You got the Balfour Declaration in there, don't you? You may have heard this, because it started being on the debate, at least on the internet, late last year I saw. It's an interesting resolve. Some of you haven't heard it though. Go forward 50 years. 50 years. I know there's people that believe in 49. If you that believe it's on the calendar every 49, I want to tell you, you had your Jubilee in 2015 to 2016. And that was the Jubilee. If you're going to go off the 49, Jonathan Cahn was kind of promoting it a lot. So he's the one that basically brought us the Shemitah. I never knew anybody else was talking about the Shemitah, the Sabbatical, the Sabbath year before Jonathan Cahn. Church never heard it as far as I know. I kind of got around a little bit. Maybe you guys knew something I didn't know. So if you're the camp that thinks it's still every 49 years, I'm not going to get into the argument. It's not the point. You run into a dilemma. You've had your Jubilee already, 2015 to 2016, it's over with. If you believe it's every 50 years, which is what Jubilee means, every 50, and on the calendar, and you can see 1917, 1967, there's like a no-brainer, 50 years, and you go back. There's other interesting events that occur in that cycle. They're back farther, but we need to stick with this, because I'm going to show you some things you never heard. This part you have. Anyway, you go forward 50 years to Tishri, 1967 to Tishri, 1968. You do not have your Six-Day War in there, do you? And so it kind of raises the question, does God know how to count? I happen to think he knows how to, right? I mean, couldn't he have got that into so best people are coming up with it's a Jubilee related event. You could say, you could back it up if you want. You want to try to get you want to say, well, no, well, it was 1967, 1968. I'm sorry, it was 1966 to 1967. That was the actual Jubilee in there. But it brings you back to 1916 to 1917. And there's nothing there. So if you're going to stick with the 50 years and you want to make it work, if you have Nisan as opening the Jewish New Year, you do have a resolve. That Nisan to Nisan 1917 and Nisan 1918, you have your Balfour Declaration in that year. Go forward 50 years, 1967 Nisan to 1968 of Nisan, you got your Six-Day War in there as well. You now have a resolve, right? It does, however, mean in that particular case that last year, 2017 to 2018, was the Jubilee as well, supposedly. Now I want you to understand some things, guys. And this is here's where we're going to go. We're going to the second point. I gave you a resolve. Some of you have heard it, some of you haven't heard it. I wanted to make sure at least my subscribers heard a resolve. If Nisan opens up the year, look at the characteristics of God, guys. By the way, I got notes over here if you wonder what I'm doing. I'm looking at notes every now and then. God's character. Nobody seems to have any problem with saying that God orchestrated the Jews going back into the land. Nobody's going to argue that. Nobody's even going to argue that God orchestrated the Six-Day War. If you're going to do that, I think you're kind of nuts. That he didn't do it. Yes, he did. God orchestrated the Six-Day War so the Jews could get Jerusalem and have more land. Excuse me. But I want you to pay attention to God's character and his commandments, because they matter to him. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. If he wants the Jews to do one thing, he's not going to contradict himself, guys. What do I mean by that? Listen to me. The Jews, for both a Sabbath, which would be the ending of the week, and a Sabbatical year, a Sabbath year, same as a Jubilee, they're identical. The only difference between the Sabbatical year and a Jubilee is the celebrations. That's it. Other than that, the rules apply. Same rules apply. Did you know, I believe it's Exodus 16:29, God told everybody to stay in your homes. You weren't supposed to budge. You were to go nowhere, not just on a Sabbath day, but on the whole Sabbatical year. Did you know that? Many of you did, right? You weren't supposed to go anywhere. You were supposed to stay put, not even leave your house. You were supposed to chill out and rest. In fact, God was so adamant about it that if you disobeyed it, I think it's in Exodus 31, the penalty was death. That's pretty serious, guys. Don't you think? Pretty serious. That's how important it was to God. And here's more of the character of God. See, if God tells you to do something, guys, he's going to make sure you're capable of doing it. You know that, right? He's not going to tell you to do something that's impossible for you to do. I mean, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not even going to go there. What God, when it came to the Sabbath, in fact, if you do read in Exodus 16:29, tell them to stay in their house for the Sabbath day, as well as the Sabbath, the Sabbatical year, same thing. See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the sixth day the bread for 2 days. 2 days. Abide every man in his place, let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. And the same thing applied for the Sabbath year, the Sabbatical, and especially the Jubilee. Did you hear me? God wanted to make sure so much that they could all chill out for a whole year, that the previous year to the Sabbatical and the Jubilee. This is going to be key, guys. You need to hear me. This is going to get critical. He gave them for the Sabbatical year any one of the 7 Sabbaths in a Jubilee cycle. The 6th year before the 7th Sabbath, or the Sabbath year, whatever that would be, and you know this, he gave you 2 years worth of crops then, just like he gives you 2 days worth for the Sabbath. That way you could chill out. God isn't going to tell you to do something and not provide a way for you to do it. And here's even crazier. He'd actually give you 3 years of food when it came to the Jubilee. On the 48th year, you'd have 3 years worth of crops and sustenance to take care of the following 2 years that were to unfold, so you could be in your house. You're put to death. Now, there are 2 arguments in here. Again, I talk about my book, but I'm not pushing the book. And I'm not going to get into the argument. I want to show you guys resolve and dilemma. Why don't you pick a side of an argument that actually has harmony? Just kind of throwing it out there. My biggest problem is, first off, the 2 arguments. One, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to find this for you. I'm going to probably have to pause. Sorry guys, I didn't want to waste your time while I was trying to find the page. Remember, we're talking, here's the 2 arguments. If Israel sinned and did not keep the Sabbatical Jubilee cycles, then he would remove them from their land. Leviticus 26:34. God says, then shall the land enjoy her Sabbaths, as long as it lieth desolate, and ye be in your enemy's land, then shall the land rest and enjoy her Sabbaths. Thus the general consensus. If and when God removed the Jews from their land, the land would be at rest. All observances would cease. There are, however, several that argue tallies never ceased, and while that might be true, that certain the act of celebrating did. It did stop. Thus the belief, only when Israel reoccupied good celebrations, even Sabbatical and Jubilee observances resume, in this case 1917, is that beginning. I wanted you guys to hear all points. I wanted to give you guys scripture. I wanted you to hear it first. Look for more videos to come. Till next time, take care and God bless.